Hi, I'm Kristoffer Rhoads, a neuropsychologist here at Harborview Medical Center, and pleased to offer you the next in a series of mindfulness meditations in partnership with the Frye Art Museum as part of our winter series. And in thinking about this and our current context, realized that we have embarked on some prior meditation exercises without much in the way of an overview of mindfulness, at least as I see it and as I approach it. And I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about the framework without veering too much into a lecture format, but to give a sense of the overall purpose and I think intent of mindfulness. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some key concepts, and I wanted to talk about some of the foundational principles that both connect the practice to the intent. So as many of you know, mindfulness certainly has its roots and foundations in Eastern meditation practices. I would invite you and encourage you not to take it from me, but to investigate some of those original sources and really get a better sense of where this comes from and its overall intention and purpose, and how that may differ or be separate from some of the more packaged mindfulness products and components that are throughout our society in so many places these days. What I find particularly attractive is that it is not tethered to these historical practices, which again is both dangerous in some ways and good in others, in that it's a really wonderful complement to other spiritual practices. It's kind of trans-theoretical and non-denominational in that way. And at its core, it is a resting of attention in the present moment, not completely divorced from the there and then, but really centering on the here and now, in this moment in which we operate and in which we live, and making contact with what is happening in the moment as a product of the past and as a precursor to the future. So again, there's still some eyes in the past and the future, but really the bulk of our focus is in the here and now, where we operate and have a chance to influence those things. At its heart, also, it employs the themes of gentleness and curiosity about our experience and things that are happening in the moment. It also is so inextricably intertwined with this non-judgmental acceptance of what is happening in the moment. And this is a tough one, in the sense that sometimes the term acceptance gets wrapped up with either ambivalence or giving up, and that is absolutely not what acceptance means. It really is engagement over avoidance, and this kind of non-judgmental appraisal of here's what's going on, here's the way I feel about that, here are the reactions that causes. Those aren't necessarily good or bad, but it is an acknowledgement of this is what's going on. And that, I think, is a critical step to then preparing oneself for what can I reasonably do about this. So it is not a kind of unplugging and lack of action. The other thing I think that's valuable about a mindfulness practice is it allows us to step out of that doing mode, that being busy and anticipating what's coming up next, and that kind of frenzied pace that we are beholden to sometimes, and becomes habitual. So to reflect a little bit more around how are we spending our time and our activities and being intentional about that. It also encourages us to be a more active participant in our lives and in our activities than a passive going through the motions framework, and really engaging and approaching versus avoiding things, including distress and things that bother us or cause us pain, physically, emotionally, which again, as we make contact with those things, that sets the stage and opens the door for reasonable courses of action that are within our sphere or our realm to be able to control or have some influence over. I would also encourage you to remember that mindfulness at its heart is relatively, or as fully as possibly, free from attachment. So it is a a practice and a way of being and a way of interacting with the world that is not done specifically to achieve any particular outcome. So often we embark on things like this to help deal with sleep problems or help manage stress or enhance resilience or decrease distress or suffering. And these may be downstream benefits of mindfulness, but approaching it with that as your aim or your goal sets the stage for disappointment, and I think misses the point of the approach and the practices overall. So mindfulness is not an escape from the things that are troubling to us. It is not a relaxation technique. It's not dogmatic in terms of a very specific way that you do it, other that it is an intentional resting of awareness and attention in the moment. One of the best definitions that I have heard is that it is paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And again, these moments in which we exist are the ones where we have some opportunities for impact and influence, so that awareness of what is happening as free from our emotional reactions driving our reactions to it, and more reasoned maybe responses. So not that you can't have feelings about something that's going on or particular reactions, those are perfectly natural. But what you do with those and how that guides the way you conduct yourself, I think might be more up for discussion or argument. Mindfulness is also, again, not completely divested from or at the expense of being aware of our pasts or anticipating or thinking about our futures, but that balanced view of what was and what if, the past and the future, with what is, which is our current moments. And again, that global awareness with an eye in each of those, but our primary focus on the here and now. So when we think about mindfulness practices, including some of the videos and the techniques that we have employed here in our meetings at the Frye and with other programs that are available, there are certainly things that help us with this, including mindfulness of the breath or a body scan, or it could be mindful walking or chopping vegetables or visual practices. So there are many, many, many pathways or things that one can do to help hone the attention and center the attention in the moment. But again, these are not the sole purpose of mindfulness. And I would be very wary about any kind of program or offering that only focuses on these techniques to enhance resilience or decrease suffering, without also providing the tools to investigate the root causes or larger issues that engender that distress and suffering. So mindfulness as a practice helps us change the way that we interact with the world and our environments, developing a greater awareness of the internal, interpersonal systems and societal issues that give rise to suffering and give rise to distress, and also begin to help us think about, after we've accepted that that is the scenario, that these things are happening, again, whether it's within me or in my relationships with others or larger social constructs, these things are occurring. These are the ways that I react to these emotionally, physically, the things that I do, the things that I say, the actions that I take. And is that what I want to do? It may be my natural reaction to passing judgment on that, but if there is that stimulus and I tend to react a certain way, is that the way I need to respond? So that ability to insert some distance between those things and think carefully about the things that are within our realm to shape or change. And it may be that we take some personal actions. It may be that there's nothing to do at the moment other than to continue to cultivate awareness and understanding that we're preparing for actions. It may be that there are things that I can do on a larger level if I'm concerned about inequity or inequality. Can I use my time or my talents or my energies with groups or other organizations that are congruent with my values. So that, again, that awareness of what is going on, what can I do about it, and suspending judgment about that, whether it's enough or if it's as much as someone thinks you should be doing or as much as your neighbor is doing. Therein comes the, again, non-judgmental awareness. So as much as it is important to have these practices, these techniques, really at the same time being aware of and very intentional around the larger purpose, that this is a way that we go about interfacing with the world in our lives. So with that, we will rotate on to maybe some more techniques and practices to help you with that. But I thought it was important to provide at least my biased view of how this fits into a larger whole. And I appreciate your time and your practice and struggle with that. And I will look forward to resuming our in-person practice when we're safe and able to do that. Thank you.